Inside Show on Lagoon Radio today, Tuesday is the 8th of August 2023, and we're transmitting live from the Diocesan Media Center in Marina, Lagos. The HR Inside Show is your show that is focused on all things human resources, providing professional insights, practical tips, as well as providing professional insights, practical tips to help you become skilled and competent professionals, as well as building happier and healthier workplaces. So that is our goal on the HR Insight Show. And this program comes your way every Tuesday at from 11 a.m. So if you're just joining us for the first time, please do keep it with us every Tuesday from 11 a.m. And just a quick reminder that you can also be a part of the program. Join the conversation online at Lagoon Radio Nigeria on Facebook, Lagoon Radio NG on Twitter, now X, Elon Musk is doing his thing, and of course on Instagram and also on Threads. Yes, our tailors, how are you doing? Shout out to you on Threads as well. Or you can call in or send a message via the studio lines on 08189 524 666, 08189 Lagoon, 08189 524 666. And as always, we look forward to hearing from you. You can also listen into Lagoon Radio via the following platforms: lagoonradio.ng. And when you log in to listen to us, make sure you also check out all the exciting content that we'll have for you. Catch up on any of the show that you may have missed, and also make sure that you participate on our top 10 countdown. Remember to use the green arrow to vote up and the red down to vote for your favorite songs. You can also access Lagoon Radio via the following platforms: on Alexa on Amazon, via your smartphone devices, and just by giving a command, say Alexa, play me Lagoon Radio. You'll be live and direct with us right here in the studio. Or download the Lagoon Radio app. It is available on Google Play Store for Android phones. We are also on iOS so that you can listen to us all day, every day, 24/7. Just put in your AirPods, your earphones, whatever it is that you used to listen to audio. And of course, we promise you that you can listen into the best gospel songs, the best inspirational, educational, and entertaining programs that we'll have for you right here on Lagoon Radio. And don't enjoy all those benefits alone. Tell a friend to listening to Lagoon Radio. So on today's show, today on his HR Insight Show, we'll be discussing another very important topic, an engaging one, and that is the effective communication in the workplace. And I'm delighted that I'll be joined by a guest, a communication expert that will be teaching us and telling us all things about communication in the workplace. So just before we hear and meet our guest, let me tell you a little bit about him. He's got over 20 years of guest. His name is Mr. Segun Obagbemi, and he's got over 20 years experience in strategic corporate communications, marketing, and public affairs. He's also a seasoned leader and expert in sub-Saharan Africa region, and has successfully led corporate communications and brand building initiatives for global companies such as General Electric and British American Tobacco Company, delivering business objectives and enhancing stakeholder relationship. His most recent role was as the Regional Communications Director for Sub-Saharan Africa at Baker Hughes, where he implemented a communication strategy that aligned with the commercial goals and vision of the company. He also managed the reputation and crisis management of Baker Hughes in the region, leveraging his extensive network and knowledge of the media, regulatory, and political landscape. And his mission is to drive business growth and social impact in Sub-Saharan Africa, using his skills, his passion for corporate communication, marketing, and public affairs. And he holds an MBA. He has undergone world-class training programs, and he was also a volunteer facilitator at Faith Foundation. And he's here with us to share his wealth of knowledge and experience, as he, of course, helps us to unlock the keys to effective communication in the workplace. So I'm delighted to once again welcome you, sir, to the program, Mr. Segun Obagbemi. Thank you, sir, for being a part of the program. We're honored to have you on the show.
Thank you. The pleasure.
So aside everything that I've mentioned in your profile, and very impressive profile, sir, is there any other thing you'd like to share with us so that we get to know you better, something that is not in your profile, so that, people listening in can, they want to know about you?
Well, thank you very much. Again, thank you for having me. And it's a pleasure to be here at Lagoon Radio. Being my very first visit, it's, like I said, a huge pleasure to be here.
And we're delighted to have you with us right here at Lagoon Radio too, sir.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, as I was saying, it's my pleasure to be here, and thank you for having me. A little bit about myself. You already mentioned it. My name is Segun Obagbemi. beyond my career and all of that one, what is also very important to me is my faith. I'm a child of God. I'm a Christian. And I have also a wonderful support system in the form of a loving wife and a wonderful daughter, Oluwafemidara. So everything I do is colored or guided by what I just said, being a child of God, and also the love of family as well as loved ones that support me. So, yeah, I think I'll leave it at that for now. Thank you very much.
So no hobbies, no hobbies, no interest that you like to share with us?
Well, I do have interest and hobbies like the next person. I'm a big football fan.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What club do you support?
Well, Chelsea.
Oh, well, I'm a sports enthusiast, but yes, don't worry. We know that you people finished, in an uncharacteristic position last season.
It was a very tough season, but hey, we're looking forward to a better one this year.
Thank you. I'm an Arsenal fan. We finished second, so yes.
Sorry about that.
Thank you so much, sir, as well. Thank you so much. So it's good to know that. Thank you. It's good to know more about you. So from your profile, it's obvious that you have a wealth of experience in the field of communications as well. So how did you become passionate about this area of expertise? Can you share a little bit about your journey into into communications?
Okay, thank you very much. My background largely, or maybe let's start from the area of interest. Ever since I was very young, I did a lot of reading. I always enjoyed reading. My mother worked in the then Daily Times, so there was always stuff in the house to read, and I was also a big fan of watching stuff. So from encyclopedias to magazines to school books, so I really enjoyed reading. So the information that you get from reading, and I'm talking about the days before the internet anyway. So the information you get from reading always fascinated me. And I had my first degree in linguistics. I majored in English. And then again, I just felt that, look, I've always had a passion for writing. So by the time I left school, my first job was that of a copywriter in an advertising agency, which was basically around marketing communication. And from there on, I built my career in marketing, brand marketing, trade marketing, then moved on to even skills development, and then also over time moved into what you call corporate and regulatory affairs, and then communications, which I've done for almost the last 8 to 10 years now.
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. And of course, yeah, it's true. It's obvious that you had so much impact in the world of communication. So let's talk communications then. How would you define effective communication in the workplace, and why is this so important for a thriving and a successful organization?
Well, communication is a means by which you share ideas, thoughts, information, data in order to enable employees deliver on corporate goals. And why it's also very important is that without communication, an organization really cannot function. Let's just say it's more or less the lifeblood of every organization. Because then again, you're talking about the fact that when you come together as an organization, you have clear goals and objectives. So with everyone being fully aligned and fully clued in on what the objectives are, and the only way you can do that is to ensure that people are receiving clear, concise, as well as actionable information for them to be able to do their job excellently. So it enables individual teams as well as corporate to deliver on their commercial objectives. So that's really the...
So it's very, very critical for collaboration in the workplace.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, as well. So what are some common barriers to effective communication that you have observed in workplaces, and how can they be overcome?
Okay. Well, there's several barriers with communication. Some language is an obvious one that comes to mind. Some are basically maybe even structural. And let's start with language. So, for instance, you and I are now conversing in English, a mutually intelligible language to both of us. If I was speaking in a different language which you didn't understand, we wouldn't be communicating now, would we? The same way within an organization, for instance, you have diverse groups within an organization. So, for instance, if you start with language, ensuring that even the language of exchange of information is what everyone understands. And then you have things like maybe cultural. All right. Within a workplace, particularly within the modern workplace now, most companies are not just situated or constituted only in a particular geographic location. Even if they were located, chances are that they will take people from diverse backgrounds, especially when you're talking about multinationals or global companies. So that means people with different ways of even understanding or sharing information. There are people who enjoy, let's say, written communication better than verbal. Yes. There are people who thrive better with demonstration as against script. So those are some of the things that will play out. Then other things that will play out, even the way an organization is structured could be a barrier. For instance, you have organizations that are very strong in terms of hierarchy, such that information is overguarded to the extent that when it's coming from top all the way down, it is filtered such that maybe the person who needs to action is at the bottom of that structure, and he doesn't get the information either on time. So
eventually, when it gets to that person, the old message is distorted.
Yes, or even it's already delayed, such that you cannot even deliver in terms of efficiency or effectiveness. So those are some of the common barriers that you have.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Very fascinating to hear that. And then it's very interesting that you talk about diversity in the workplace. So how do you identify and address communication styles, among team members in the diverse with diversity in the workplace? How can you even identify and address identify communication styles before we even think about them interacting and collaborating for productivity in the workplace?
Okay. Very good question. I think the first thing to understand that even if you have people coming from, let's say, the same country or even the same socioeconomic group, or people are just different. All right. So let's take an average workplace now. You have the modern workplace is constituted by different generations. From the Gen X to the Gen Zs to the millennials to even older folks that operate within the workspace. They use information or they consume information differently. Let's say, for instance, when it comes to young people, they thrive more on either receiving information in the form of text or even receiving customized information in the form of streams of pages or platforms that they follow. And they also prefer information in bite-sized.
Yes, they are very short concentration span.
Yes, as compared to maybe older folks who are ready to read 3 or 4 pages and read it over time before they even understand it. So with that in mind, it just basically means that within a workspace, there should be multiple ways by which you conduct or pass on information. So for instance, maybe gone are the days where you expect that once an email blast goes to everyone will read it. The truth of the matter is not so. I can even give a particular example. I was responsible for a company that operated within 14 countries across sub-Saharan Africa. And you had people that English wasn't their second or even their third language in a certain respect. Fine, they could function in English, but the point was that they were not proficient in the language. So when you write a 2-page long email and send to them on what the company is doing, and we found out that barely less than 40% of the people were even bothering with reading it, not to even talk of understanding it.
Because it wasn't in a language that they preferred, to be communicated.
And it was also a volume of words or text on a page, which didn't really speak to them. So we started to do the information in more bite-sized format. Also using, obviously, if it was very important, we decided, okay, we probably need to translate into what their second language is. I'm talking about people who spoke Portuguese, for instance, and who also spoke a traditional language before speaking Portuguese, before now speaking English.
Oh, wow.
So you're talking about things that are not as easy.
That's multilingual. Multilingual. That's the term.
On a whole different level. So then we started doing also things like video, right? And also when it comes to video conferences, such that you could pass on information, or even equipping team leaders to be the one that cascade important information that you needed action on. So those are some of the things by which you can take into consideration when you're dealing with diversity within the workspace.
Thank you so much, sir. Let's move on to strategies because our goal here is to ensure that people communicate and collaborate better in the organization for productivity. So what are some practical ways individuals can enhance their communication skills and become better collaborators?
Well, for a start, communication skills, we take it for granted because we all communicate in one form or the other. But particularly within the workspace, before you can be a good communicator, you first have to be a good listener. Even the Bible tells us that we should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and even slower to anger, such that your ability to take in information first is very important. So, for instance, listening is not something that comes to us naturally as people. And there's even a bias to listening. At times, there's too much concentration on listening to respond rather than listening to understand. So the first thing you need to do is to spend time listening to understand, right?
Sir.
Before you can now say, okay, build your response based on the understanding you have of the information that has been communicated to you. So within the workspace, if you're looking to improve, first of all, learn to be a good listener. That would be the first thing. Second of all, choose the right channel or platform for which you can pass on the information. Given the example that I just shared a moment ago, if the person that you wish to communicate with is the person that prefers not to do too much reading, then don't put too much information in an email and expect that they're going to read
in a text form.
So, for instance, one of the things that I learned very early in my career was that if you're writing to very senior executives, don't spend too much time with the introduction, the background. I was told that at the very top of your email, put your request there. Because if you're informing them of something, fine, they can read. If you say, oh, this is for your information, then he is already aware that this is for information purposes.
And it captures their attention immediately.
And if you say, okay, fine, I need your decision on this, then my decision is required. Then he goes through, okay, I need to. If it's for basically FYI, okay, FYI is for your information, for your decision, or for your recommendation, as it were. Or you could just say that, look, can you intervene or maybe delegate this, as it were. So that way, the person that you're communicating with, given that their time is very precious and they have a lot in their email to attend to, you're already very straight to the point. That which basically speaks to the fact that you also need to make information concise.
Yes.
Being verbose, we're all guilty of it. We love the sound of our own voice. Even research has proven that we love the sound of our own voice, such that we don't get too lost in speaking or communicating for ourselves.
We're just,
bear your audience
just
in
falling
mind.
in love with the voice, with our own voice.
You're a communicator. You communicate to a large audience, right? You may not necessarily get real-time feedback, but the point is that you need to be conscious of the fact that whatever it is that you're communicating is resonating with the audience.
Yes, sir.
This is a Christian radio station. Fine. If I wanted to listen to secular music, there are other options that I can listen to. So if I tune into Lagoon, I expect to be uplifted spiritually. I expect the communication that comes to me to be colored or shaped by my faith.
Yes.
So those are some of the things that to bear in mind. So as someone within the workspace, just bear your audience in mind. Be very concise in the way in which you pass on information. Choose the right format or channel for passing on the information. There's so many other things, but also practice. I think practice is something that we take for granted. Practice, practice, and practice.
Thank you so much, sir. And just to reinforce what you said, we play the best gospel in music right here. So if you haven't been listening to us, make sure that you do listen to us on Lagoon Radio. Thank you so much, sir. You said so some of the strategies for you to become better communicators and collaborators: be an active listener, be a better listener. Make sure that the information you pass is concise and not verbose, and of course also practice. So I was wondering, what role does non-verbal communication play in conveying messages effectively in the workplace?
Well, non-verbal is very important, because non-verbal basically just talks about every other thing that you use to communicate that it doesn't use voice or words, right? So even as it is right now, imagine you having a conversation and you're sitting on your hands, as compared with when you're gesticulating, either to drive home a point. So you can use nonverbal as a basis for emphasis, all right, either to underscore a point or for you to even disabuse the mind of your listener or the person that you're engaging with. I think we can all relate to the fact that you've probably had someone take offense based on what they suppose the tone of our email or our SMS said. And you say, oh, I never meant it that way. So those are some of the big challenges with our times when you're not in front of the person that you're talking to. So if I say, oh, you're silly, and I have a smile on my face when I say you're silly, as compared to if I wrote it down and you and I are not that close and I put you're silly.
So immediately
like,
you get offended.
You could get
take
offended
offense.
just based on just the text that you're seeing in front of me. But if you're silly, and I tap you lightly on the shoulder, it's a different understanding of that same expression. So that's how nonverbal is very important, and particularly within the workspace. One of the things I've found is that especially things don't translate very well across culture, even across age groups, even across what you might call emotional sensitivity levels. You can say the same joke to someone on Friday that you say to them on Monday, and they will take it differently.
Because
who knows? Maybe they just had a fight with their significant other before coming to work on that Monday morning. So at times, you need to be very sensitive to your audience. So nonverbal is always a means by which you can either correct or accentuate your meaning.
Yes, sir.
All right. So that helps an individual when you're communicating.
Thank you so much. Excellent insight. So it does. So nonverbal communication helps to convey emotions, attitude, and intentions. So you need to be very careful when you're also communicating non-verbally. Thank you so much, sir. So let's move on now and talk about leaders. Because it's very important that you mentioned about leaders, that communication mostly come from the top. And of course, you also indicated that sometimes it can get delayed, or obviously the message can also get distorted, while passing across communication channels as well. So so how can leaders communicate effectively in the way that they can inspire and motivate their team members?
Okay. Someone said a long time ago, I can't remember who exactly, says, if you're leading and no one is following, you're just taking a walk. So essentially, for you to even call yourself a leader, that means it's your ability to inspire others to see things the way which you want them to see it. You're taking them to a higher place. And one of the strongest tools for a leader is communication. And with that in mind, it basically means that for you to have impact with your communication, you even need to understand the people you're communicating with. It doesn't necessarily mean you know every single person by name. First of all, you need to understand what are their aspirations. So, for instance, as a business leader, there's an assumption that, okay, everyone that is working for you is there to build their career. However, as simple as that is, it may not necessarily be true for everyone in terms of either the same level of passion. For some, it's I'm here to earn a paycheck. For some, I just need this as a hold up before I get to my other job. For some, fine, I understand you make X in this company, but I'm not really inspired by what it is that you make. I'm just here because I'm just here. So as an individual or as a leader, your ability to inspire is very important. So first of all, you need to understand. You need to understand where people are coming from. Understand that you don't make certain assumptions for your own benefit to the detriment of your people. I said something about at times you all love the sound of our own voice. So as leaders, at times effective communication for a leader is not about oratory skills, right? Oration is different from effective communication. And that was why I started that if you think you're leading and no one is following, then you might as well be taking a walk. So the point being that if as a leader you are able to clearly communicate a clear picture to people to inspire, for them to follow, and for them to stay aligned to that picture, then you are being effective. And from time to time, you also need to do what is called feedback, whether formal or as well as informal. A good example on my part, I reported directly to the region vice president for the company. And every time we made an announcement in the form of, let's say, what we call a town hall, which usually spreads across all about 14 countries where we operate, one of the things he always likes to know is, look, what are the people saying? Yes. People are not going to come out in an open forum and ask all the people. Some people ask questions, but most of the people will feel too shy. Yes. Or they don't want to be singled out, I'm not a troublemaker. So one of the things which I always do is I reach out informally to all the various contacts that I have just to get a feel of what people are thinking. It doesn't necessarily mean that every single feeling is justified for you to now either change your direction or the communication or your intent. But at least it's good to know what people are feeling about a piece of information or communication that has been passed on to them. So the ability to also get feedback is very important.
Thank you, sir. So leaders should lead by example, actively listening to their team members, and of course, they should also provide a supportive environment for constructive feedback.
That's correct.
Thank you so much, sir. So let's talk about organizational culture. You've talked about it. How can leaders promote a culture of effective communication aside from the feedback mechanism? Is there other strategies that that they can put in place to promote a culture of effective communication within their teams and within the organization itself?
Okay. Well, the first thing possibly has to do even with the structure of the organization. There's some organizations that are very hierarchical, and by nature, or by design, they're good that way. So, for instance, let's say in the military, right? Military is about taking and giving orders. It's not about discussing issues, especially in particular situations. So, your ability to take orders and receive orders is very clear. So, those are strong hierarchies. But in corporate organization, particularly where you have people not within a uniform or standard ranking as you will have it, let's say, within the military, it is always good that you understand that, okay, there are diverse groups within that setup, and you need to first of all encourage the culture of openness, such that people don't feel afraid to speak their mind. People speaking their mind doesn't make them right, but at least it makes them have an opinion, and you can acknowledge that opinion.
Okay.
So imagine you being in a group and everybody's talking and you say, oh, you keep quiet, we'll listen to what, you've already put that person down, and the person, believe me, they won't say anything the next time. So an organization, a leader needs to promote that culture of openness such that the hierarchy itself does not stifle people. They need to ensure that, okay, people are, you encourage people to use their initiative also.
Okay.
A situation whereby your initiative does not become inferior because you are of a lower grade as compared with a manager, as compared with a non-manager. That shouldn't be. Everyone has value. So if you promote that culture of openness, the value that each person brings to the table, the fact that you also even reward positive behavior that leads in that direction.
Yes.
You provide some form of incentive. And incentive doesn't have to be cash. It even means simple things as recognition.
Just appreciation.
You appreciate people in an open forum. You be like, oh, by the way, I would just like to acknowledge what X did yesterday, the way in which you managed the issue we had with the customer. It's very, very commendable. The customer was able to come back. So things like that will engender that spirit of openness, will engender that spirit of respect, will engender that spirit of people being able to give feedback freely without being coerced.
Oh, thank you so much, sir. So they should, for leaders, they should make sure that aside the feedback mechanism, they should have a culture where they promote, where people are encouraged, to give their feedback, give their thoughts and views without any fear of reprimand as well or judgment. Thank you so much, sir. So let's shift to conflict resolution. We know that that is one thing that is bound to arise from time to time as well. So what are the best ways to handle disagreements or conflicts arising from miscommunication in the workplace?
If I can just quickly go to the Bible, it says, for sure, conflict or offense shall come.
Shall come.
I think the best thing to always understand, and avoiding conflict itself is adding to the problem. First of all, it's not to try and avoid conflict. Avoidance doesn't work. The point is to understand that within an organization, even an individual has a conflict within himself, let alone where you have 200, 300, or 300 people within a space. Is first of all to understand that conflict will come. And in team formation, there are phases. If I can remember what those phases are, it comes about. There's storming, norming, performing. I think there's a fourth one. It escapes my memory now. That anytime you form a group, all right, they will start with the storming stage because everyone is coming with their own background, with their own view on life or how they see things, until they get to that stage of performing. So the ability of a team, of a leader to guide that team through those phases until they come to that place where they're performing is utopia, as it were. However, before you get to that stage, you first of all need to understand that, first of all, people are different. So you don't try and impose a uniform way of dealing with individuals. You have to customize your message, even your interaction with people. Okay. People need to realize that they are seen as individual and not just the number. I think another thing to bear in mind when it comes to conflict resolution is to be very fair-minded and to be very open. People need to be listened to, because when you have a view, you want to express that view. To you that is expressing the view, it is truth.
Yes.
Until a counter-argument is provided. So by ensuring you listen to people whenever there's a conflict, to hear all sides of the story, as it were, and then you have to also make a judgment. But you can make a judgment without putting someone down. You and I can disagree without being disagreeable. All right?
Yes.
So those are some of the things people need to bear in mind.
Agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. And at times, all people really want is to be acknowledged. It is not really about being who is right and who is wrong.
You just want their views to be acknowledged.
My view is valid to me. You may not necessarily see it that same way, and there's nothing wrong with that, but that is the way that I see it. And there, yes, you acknowledge that the person has a view and has an opinion. Okay? So, yeah, the same with ultimately, because one thing you want to bear in mind is that as good as conflict is, it should not become the norm in an organization, because then again, remember, no one really operates. There's no man that's an island unto himself. Within an organization, departments work with one another, individuals work with one another. A situation whereby there's constant conflict, the first thing you need to even understand is there something that is wrong with the organizational design? Do people have the right fit for the roles in which they are? Do they have the skill set for them to be able to do that role effectively? Am I empowering or enabling them to perform at their do they have all the necessary information for them? What are the real causes of this conflict? Is this a recurring conflict, or is this a one-off? Okay, is this an issue that we're dealing with a situation that we've never dealt with before, so everyone is reacting to it differently? Or is this something that keeps happening on a regular basis? So those are some of the things you need to bear in mind. Then you will now be able to decipher, okay, this is what we need to do to solve the issues.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So for effective conflict resolution, ensure that you hear all sides as well before you make any judgments. And remember that people's views, like you said, that's their truth. And so they have a right to also communicate their own views as well. So we know that, let's move on, sir. We know that communication extends beyond the boundary of the workplace. So let's talk about external communications, that communications that we have with clients, with stakeholders, with customers as well. So do you have any tips when it comes to external communications?
Okay. From an organizational perspective, the first thing is there must be clear understanding of the vision as well as the mission of the organization, which is the overarching view of the world, if you will, that the organization has. And then again, that it will now be followed by what the goals and objectives, let's say within a time period, it could be for that particular year or for a particular quarter or even a particular month or week. Everyone needs to understand that. And then that's now followed by what you might call key messages or talking points. So, for instance, you'll have a situation whereby if you as an organization has been invited to speak, let's say at an open forum, at an event, on a subject that is particular to your industry, you can share your views. If you as the spokesperson or the representative of the organization, you go and represent. You're speaking not only on behalf of yourself, you are invariably speaking on behalf of the organization. So you need to be guided, first of all, in understanding, okay, where does my company stand in relation to this subject matter that I'm discussing? How does this affect us? You can talk about information technology. Let's say you were invited to an IT platform. You're talking about the role of startup in Nigeria, and you happen to also be an IT company. So you can talk about the trend, but then again, you need to bring talking points to support where your company or your organization sits or how it views that particular topic. So those are some of the things that you need to bear in mind when you are engaging externally. The other thing will also be using the right channels in order to be able to engage with various stakeholder groups. Obviously, everything is largely online now, with social media playing a particular strong role in the way in which organizations engage or communicate with their external public. So that in itself will bear in mind such that, okay, what are we putting the same consistent message across all the various platforms that we're engaging with people? Do we have a feedback mechanism such that people can also feedback? Maybe just to share something quickly, one of the things I've noticed, particularly on Twitter, is that anytime a major influencer posts something, you will find people go and onto the comment section to tag their bank or
yes,
their IT.
Yes, I thought I was the only one.
Mobile phone company.
I always wonder what is the correlation with with the person's post and you saying, look MTN. I haven't. My line has not been working. Thank you so much for bringing that up, sir.
It's a form of subtle pressure, just to get people to respond. So it's almost like you're showing them up, so to speak.
I know it always works. There's always a representative and say, "Oh, we're so sorry. We're sorry. Please contact so and we make sure we'll resolve this problem immediately." It works. It works like a charm all the time.
It seems to. So I think people have decided, look, that's the way in which I'm going to get my issues resolved. So that in a way it's something that speaks to how communication works in this day and age as compared to maybe 20 years ago. So things really have changed. So you need to have a means by which you get information, rather feedback on the information you're passing on. You need to be consistent. You need to also you can't fool people, all right? People have ways and means by which they can find out if what you're saying is sincere or true or even fact-based. So don't lie to your audience. You need to be very sincere as an organization. And even when you have issues, you need to also deal with it headlong, because that's where crisis management now comes in.
Yes, thank you so much, sir. So make sure that your message is very clear. Don't tell lies. And of course, if you are a spokesperson for the organization, make sure that it aligns with the organizational goals and mission as well. Thank you so much, sir. We'll come a little bit. We'll talk later about technology. Obviously, we can't talk about communication without technology. But I just wanted to quickly ask you, what role does emotional intelligence play in communication in the workplace?
Emotional intelligence, they can teach you, they can build up your IQ in school, but usually you learn the EQ or emotional quotient through life experience. So emotional intelligence is very important. It's what at times they will call native intelligence in Nigeria. Okay. At times, they say a diplomat is someone who can tell somebody to go to hell in a way that they look forward to the trip. So your ability is not so much as what you say, but even how you say it. Yes. So understanding that within the work place, for instance, you remember we've spoken about diversity.
Yes.
Different people operate with different mindset. People have different background. People have different view of the world.
And communication styles as well.
And that will invariably now impact on how you adapt your communication style to engage with them. I had a boss who was like, look, you can send me all the emails you want, but if something is very urgent, pick up the phone and call me.
Okay. Yes.
Pick up the phone and call me. Just don't send me an email, because I deal with 200, 300 emails on a daily basis. Just because I see your mail or you put it in red doesn't mean
that I have to acknowledge it immediately.
But if it's important, pick up the phone and call me. You can't get me on the phone, send me a text message.
And that's his own communication style.
That's his own communication style. Oh, it's super urgent, it's an emergency, walk over to my office.
Okay, thank you so much.
So those are some of the things that at times you need to bear in mind.
Thank you so much. Very, very fascinating. So let's talk technology now. Like I said, how does technology impact workplace communication? And please share with us some effective communication tools that organizations can also use to enhance communication in the workplace.
Okay. Without telling you how old I am, I started my career in anytime you needed something very important, you had to write a memo, and I meant typewrite it. You handwrite it and you hand it over to someone to type, and then the person now you sign it, and then you get to be minuted. That could take several days, right? As compared to now, where all you need is instant messaging in the form of an email within seconds. From you composing the message, it gets to the receiver. So there are several tools, I think, in the modern workplace, from email, which everyone uses and takes for granted now. Then you're also talking about video conferencing tools.
Yes.
Okay, and that you're talking about the intranet. Every other organization has. You also have instant messaging application that is almost standard on every desktop, such that people, and I've also found that particularly with millennials, they have their own world, as it were, forums using instant messaging as compared to just email. So those are some of the things at times you also need to bear in mind. And that's one of the things tools that you use every day. Obviously, you're talking about multiple social media touch point, be it LinkedIn, if for most business organization, to Twitter, to other microblogging sites. So within the office space, anything and everything that ensures instantaneous, useful, consumable information you use, and it will continue to grow. The various platforms will continue to grow.
Okay, thank you, sir. So tools, collaboration tools like video conferencing tools, intranets, like you said, are very, very crucial. And of course, will enhance communication in the workplace. Let's just quickly talk about social media. You mentioned social media as another valuable communication tool. What are some best practices for organizations to effectively leverage social media for communication? And please give us some tips for us here, sir.
Okay. Well, everything always takes its root from your overall goals or even your mission as an organization. You need to start with that. Who are we? An organization needs to answer that question for itself. If you have a clear sense of your identity, that will feed through on your communication plan. And your communication plan then, of which social media is obviously a major chunk nowadays, feeds from that as well. So in terms of we've said it, but I'll maybe just quickly summarize again. In terms of social media, I think one of the ways, given the short attention span of many people who consume social media, you need to be very concise in your information. You need to be very consistent in your information sharing, as it were. So if they know that every Monday morning by 9, you post, people will be there. They will set an alert that every time you get a notification. So you need to be consistent. You need to provide information in a way which they can consume and understand it quickly. You need to be very open, and open is relative. It just basically means that, okay, are you an organization that is shrouded in secrecy? If you are an organization that thrives on the fact that you thrive on secrecy, then maybe you don't need to be engaging, all right? Or even if you need to engage, you can choose to engage only when it's necessary, not on an ongoing basis, because people will respond. So, for instance, why have a Twitter page that you switched off the comment section? What is the need of that?
Privacy.
So you are being very you're being very disingenuous in the sense that, okay, you want to say something and you don't want to hear what we have to say about that. You
don't
thing
want
said.
Feedback.
So it speaks. So it affects your brand, as it were, if you do that. So yeah, like I said, consistency, the conciseness of the message. I think the integrity of the message. You can't lie to the people. I think we mentioned that before, because people have a way by which they can find out information. So don't lie to your audience. Be very direct. Be very open to them. And if there are things you can't respond to, respectfully decline to respond. All right. Yes. Also use the relevant platforms to engage. So there's no need you going on I don't know. Well, MySpace, which used to exist 15, 20 years ago.
Yes.
And I say, because we've always used MySpace. No. Where are the audience? Where do they enjoy going? Everyone has an Instagram page now, because it started as a picture sharing platform. But now, I think this is probably the largest followers and users of the app. People like to this show and tell. You have short videos that helps you pass on messages. You have messages from your chief executives. You also leverage your employees as your spokespeople, as it were. Obviously, within boundary and guidance provided to them. But then again, that is the way by which you also show and influence and even attract talent to your organization. If people see how great fun your employees are having, and they're all talking about how wonderful a company that it is. And I think the same principle applies to even Lagoon Radio. There's a large chunk of young people who have the hunger to know God, but maybe not in the way in which it was shared with their generation, the generation of their parents.
Yes, sir.
So it's about ensuring that, okay, what are the interests of young people? And I've seen so many examples of many pages that I follow of young influencers who are Christians, who are unashamed to share their faith in a secular environment which they thrive, and they share it in a way that is relatable and is also very impactful. So I think those are some of the things that Lagoon Radio, and by extension you guys, can do. You already have your own followers, as it were, as individuals. So take Lagoon Radio, take your faith. Let your faith. I share daily word from the Bible app that I use. I don't have to. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. Yes. So it's a way by which I also promote my faith and share with people. And there was a time, just to quickly share with you, I stopped sharing for a few weeks, and if a friend or a follower that I had in Portugal reached out to me and said, "Oh, how come I stopped sharing?"
So it just tells you the impact.
So it just tells you that someone, even if it's just one person,
no, the impact of your message,
the word of God that you share on. So don't take it for granted that, oh, maybe I wouldn't make a difference. So no, I think we all make a difference in our own little way. God uses everything for His glory.
Thank you so much, sir. This has been such an enlightening conversation. So just some key takeaways for our listeners. Remember, actively listening when you are communicating, and also practice clarity and conciseness. Make sure that your message is concise, and then, of course, embrace technology. Make sure that you also resolve conflicts through effective communication, encourage open dialogue, active listening, and, of course, search for mutually beneficial solutions. Have I left anything out, sir?
I think you summarized it better than I could have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sharing all these valuable insights and actionable tips with us. It's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Likewise, it's been a pleasure being here, and I'm really, really excited. This is my first time in Lagoon Radio, but I've heard so much about the wonderful work you guys are doing, but it's good to see it firsthand and to be in the building with you wonderful professionals behind the console here. And thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much, sir. And please do visit us anytime.
Sure will.
We'll be honored to have you on any of our programs. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
And that's our show for today. We hope that you have found this today's topic very informative, and of course, it will help you to communicate effectively and collaborate, for better in your workplaces as well. Thank you once again for joining us on the HR Insights show. We'll be back next week with another engaging topic for you. Until then, keep communicating effectively and achieving greatness in your workplace. Once again, thank you. Have a super productive day, and I will see you next time. God bless.
This is Lagoon Radio.